Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I have something very exciting for you guys. So if you've been following my socials, as you know, I am racing at the 3.5 hour of Oulton Park race in the C1 series with BPC Motorsport. So yeah, it was quite some exciting news to say the least, and I was very excited about it. I've been practicing quite a lot for the sim rigs, as you may have seen from my socials as well. And yeah, I was very excited to make my car racing debut in the C1 series. Obviously, I tried out for the scholarship with BPC, as you know from my previous video, which I sadly didn't get. But yeah, I managed to get the opportunity to race with BPC this weekend, and it was an absolute learning curve, and what an experience it was. So yeah, today I actually vlogged the whole weekend for you. So from testing on the Friday all the way to the end of the race on Saturday, I've vlogged the entire weekend. So I'm going to edit it through now and show you guys how the day went and how the weekend went. So let's just jump straight into the Friday then and see how it went then. Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and today, as you know from my socials, that some interesting things happening. I'm racing at Oulton Park in the C1 series. I'm actually currently walking down the paddock. I'm just going back to my car quickly. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. Today is actually the Friday, so I'm actually doing testing today. No clue how it's going to go, because I've never actually done a proper race circuit in a C1 race, and I've never actually raced in cars before, so it's going to be quite interesting to say the least. The car looks a bit different compared to when I last tested it. Obviously I did it at Oulton Park in the 437, it was the silver one. Today it's actually white, and it's got a new paint scheme and everything. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to say the least. Yeah, I will show you around the garage in a minute, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, as you can see, the Oulton Park circuit is just over there. Yeah, all the garages over here. We're with BPC, as you can see it just there. So yeah, I'll cut to a bit later and introduce the car with you guys, and we'll see what happens. Alright boys, so we're here in the garage. We've got the car just here, so I'll give you a little tour around it. So here, just come in here. So here's a little setup. Obviously I was in this car before with testing. I've got the little GoPro all set up over here, so we'll get there. Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to say the least. I have no clue how it's going to go, but yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll jump in the first session then and see how it goes then. So here we go for the first test session then. As you can see, the GoPro angle's a little bit dodgy here and a little bit too far behind. I do change that from the next test session onwards throughout the weekend. So yeah, there is a few lighting issues as well, as obviously the GoPro's set up for inside the car, so it's very sensitive to the light coming through the window. So I apologise about that in advance. But yeah, we're going out on track then for the first test session. So in this day I got two test sessions, both 30 minutes each, so an hour track time altogether throughout the test. Like I said, I wasn't going to be pushing anything hard today, so I was just basically getting used to the car and getting used to the handling of it around this track. Obviously I've had a little bit of experience driving a Citroen C1, but only around Oulton Park and not a whole lot, so yeah, it was a massive learning curve to say the least, and try and get used to it before obviously qualifying the next day. But yeah, I decided to try and push it a little bit more as the session went on, and definitely felt I was finding a little bit more pace. The time was still way off. I don't actually remember exactly what time I got in this session, but it was 100% way off the pace, as I had cars overtaking me left, right and centre. So yeah, like I said, I wasn't expecting to push any limits on this session. I was just taking it easy, trying to find where the good lines were, see what gear changes and what gear to be in for certain corners, for example, because obviously I'm used to carring in like Rotax. Obviously there's no gears in that, you literally just throttle, brake and steering, so it's a little bit different to say the least. And even compared to the KZ, it's a lot different, a hell of a lot different. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve to say the least. But I have to thank Josh, who was driver coaching this weekend, who gave me lots of advice and lots of driver coaching, and definitely got me up to a much better pace and a lot quicker in the lap times. So I definitely can't complain about that too much. But yeah, like I said, for now in this first session I was basically just trying to get used to driving the car and getting used to what it handles like compared to obviously other things I've tried. But yeah, it was a really fun track layout. I actually really like this track. I personally think it's one of my personal favourites after racing it for the weekend. But yeah, we come back into the pits then after our first test session of the weekend, and I was pretty happy really. Obviously started off a little bit slow. I'd slowly build up more pace, Still a little bit off the pace, but nevertheless I was just here to have a bit of fun for this first test session. So yeah, we'll go back into the pits then and see if we can go through with the team of how we can go a little bit quicker and see what I can do better. So boys, just had our session. Pretty good first session. I learned a lot from Josh after I came in, after we got some footage back. Definitely learned some points where I can change the gears a bit differently, and also brake a lot later, and also just take it a lot more with speed, let's just say that. So yeah, I'm just sitting out this next session because my teammate's out on track right now. So yeah, we'll just watch him come around in a second. So yeah, there she goes. So yeah, on track. So yeah, I guess now we'll just start this next session, see what she's doing, and move on to my next session then. So here we go for our second test session then, and as you can see from the windshield, it is a little bit wet, so it's going to be very interesting for this session to say the least. Obviously I had a little bit of wet experience at Blighton on the Wednesday, but this is a little bit more heavier. It's not too wet, it's pretty much damp, it's not like heavy rain or anything. But yeah, it was still something that I had to learn and obviously get used to, especially that they did forecast wet for the race and qualifying. So yeah, really was happy to try and go out and have a little bit of practice on this one. Obviously, like I said, I got some driver coaching from Josh, and I decided to try and put that to good use, and definitely felt that I had a lot more pace and actually got a lot quicker lap time, even though it was actually wet conditions compared to when it was dry earlier. I think my best lap in this one was like a 2:30 dead, which is pretty slow and pretty off the pace still, but as you can see I was actually keeping up with cars ahead, and the car literally directly ahead of me is actually my teammate or the other car in the team. So yeah, it was definitely good to actually be challenging with other people and keeping up with other people, especially that it's in, well, wet slash damp conditions. And obviously, as you guys know from karting, I'm pretty terrible in wet conditions. So yeah, I was very happy with my pace in this session, and definitely felt like Josh helped me out with a bit of advice and where I can improve on. So yeah, I was just going around here following, and as you'll see from this whole session that I don't actually lose touch with this pack. I'm pretty much on the back or tail of this pack throughout the whole session. I didn't go for a send down the inside because I was very worried about damaging, well, one, my car, and two, the other car from the team. So yeah, I didn't really send it, I just kind of stayed behind, and really I should have just been a little bit more aggressive and tried to go for a move and just stick my nose in a little bit and see if I could have got past, and maybe if he let me past. But I thought, you know what, I'll just stick on the tail, just try and learn some lines from them, learn some braking points. And sometimes you can kind of tell when they're gear changing. It's slightly hard, but you can sort of see the car dip a little bit. So I was trying to figure out where they're gear changing, but I couldn't really tell much of a difference really, and I was kind of just using the gears Josh was telling me to use. But yeah, as you can see, I'm still on the back tail of the other car in the team. So yeah, I'm literally just pretty much running right as close as I can, really trying to bump draft him, really, especially out this first corner here. As you can see, I'm very close here and pretty much just slipstreaming him, pushing him along the straight. I don't quite make contact with him, I'm literally right on the edge of making contact though, and that's why here I do brake a little bit early and just lift off and don't get too close throughout the corner, because I was worried that if he broke a little bit earlier than what I did, then I'd go into the back of him and push him straight off track or something. So I thought if I just lift off just a little bit earlier into that corner and just back off a little bit, then it'll be a much better. And as you can see, down the straight once again, getting right close to him. Here I was lifting off just a little bit because obviously it was a little bit damp and I didn't want to go flying off into the barrier or anything. But yeah, really enjoyed this session and definitely felt like my, well, kind of wet slash damp track experience got a little bit better, and definitely felt like my pace was improving massively throughout this session. So can't complain too much. But we are actually all going into the pits a little bit early here because there was actually a red flag coming towards the end of the session. So yeah, they pretty much just finished the session early. We did wait at the end of the pit lane for a while, but they decided to just check a flag because they were repairing the barrier. So yeah, that is the end of our final test day session on the Friday then. So I guess we'll jump out of the car then and see if we can get more advice as I let my teammate go out for the next session then. yeah, that's the end of testing then. Pretty decent test day, definitely a massive learning curve. No clue how the race is going to go personally. I definitely have to thank Josh and BPC for running me this weekend, because it would not be possible without them. Definitely learned a lot, so I guess we'll just jump into the race and jump into the qualifying session to start with on the next day and see how it goes then. Alright, so boys, it's now Saturday morning. I'm the first one up. I've actually just opened up the garage with the cars behind there. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to say the least. Like I said, testing was a massive learning curve. Massive shout out to BPC Motorsport for helping me out and spannering for me for the day and hiring out the car for me. And also massive shout out to Josh, who helped me out with driver coaching a massive amount. And I definitely learned a lot yesterday, so I guess I just have to put it to good use today in the qualifying and race. Here's the BPC Motorsport garage. Here's all the cars that are running today. So obviously this one's ours. We got the novice plates on, the little X on the back there. I don't think I really showed you guys the car yesterday, so I'll just go through a little bit of the inside. So here obviously we have the fire extinguisher. If you pull that, obviously it'll go off if there's a obviously fire in the engine. Hopefully we don't have that problem. It's pretty cool as well because you can turn the radio on. I'm not going to do that now because it's quite early in the morning. So yeah, it's a pretty cool setup. As you may have noticed, I moved the camera around over here now, so it is a little bit different now, a different angle, which I think I would prefer that one really. And obviously we have the Cobra seat, massive bucket seat, really comfy when you're strapped in there. So yeah, a pretty cool little setup. So yeah, I guess we'll just see how it goes then, and see what we can do in this little mean machine of ours then. So yeah, now I'll cut to a little bit later, just before qualifying, and we'll jump straight into our first ever qualifying in the C1 series. Let's do this. Here we go then, my first qualifying session in car racing. So as you can see, straight away you can see the GoPro is a little bit dodgy with the lighting. I have tried to edit the footage in the editing software, but this is the best I can get it, so I apologise about that. But like I said, qualifying, I don't really know how exactly it's going to go. I just decided to just try and take Josh's advice, just go out, I fully send it as much as I could and just go as quickly as I could really. As you can see, I have got a C1 just ahead of me here, so I am going to try and use his slipstream a little bit. I did notice he was a bit quicker than me, so that could be a good thing. So it means I won't get blocked up, but I'm also getting dragged along here with the slipstream. So yeah, my best lap in qualifying was actually a 2:24.9, I think it was. So it was a lot quicker than what my final lap time was yesterday in the damp conditions on that second test session. But when I look back at the footage with Josh, I definitely know that I could have done a lot better and definitely got a lot better of a time and moved up the grid a little bit more. I also made a couple of silly mistakes in this session as well, with just gear changing and also just braking points and stuff. Like, it really did not go well at all. As you can see, I did manage to out-qualify a few people. As you can see, there was that blue C1 that I just overtook there down the inside in towards turn 1. So yeah, we didn't start last, which was good, but also we were quite far down the grid. I think we qualified P25 after someone actually had to start in the pit lane, which was not a good start for them. But yeah, it was P26 but bumped up to P25, so a bit of a shame, especially that I know we could have gone a bit quicker. Obviously a couple silly mistakes in qualifying, like I've already said, and a massive stupid mistake, which is a bit of a rookie mistake. Obviously I know I am a rookie in car racing, but I should know this especially from karting. So I came around this sweeping left-hander here in towards the tight hairpin, and as I'm on the brakes about to switch down, my front left just hits the grass under braking and obviously spins me off, and I flick grass all over the track through the hairpin. So that's pretty much ruined everyone's lap time there, because the marshals actually ended up leaving it on the track and just left the hazard flag out for the rest of qualifying. So yeah, I ruined my own qualifying and everyone else's qualifying from that point on. And as you can see in slow motion, as you see there, I just hit the brakes, obviously hit the grass on the left hand side on the outside, and obviously it just spun me straight around. I just flicked grass everywhere, which is a massive shame. Obviously eventually it was my time to come into the pits and do a driver swap so my teammate can do a couple laps in qualifying. Obviously we shared the car in qualifying equally, so yeah, I jumped out of the car and obviously the team got her jumped in to the car and strapped in ready for her to go out for her stint in qualifying. And yeah, she did pretty well as well, managed to get a few consistent lap times in. My fastest lap of a 2:24.9 actually stayed the fastest in our car, so yeah, that was basically the best time we got, and that's what put us in P25. Sadly, my teammate actually ended up spinning off at some point on that hairpin where I spun off and actually beached the car, and actually kept wheel spinning it in the mud, so it flicked mud all over the car, which you'll see the aftermath of in a minute. But yeah, that is the end of qualifying then. So yeah, boys, just done qualifying. A little bit of a shambles, as you may have seen there on the video. I did lose the back end a little bit and hit my front left on the grass and spun right around. Chucked loads of mud on the track, which is not good at all. My teammate went out and hit that same mud after me, and completely got stuck in the mud on that same corner and couldn't get out, and wheel spinned it on the mud and got it all covered in mud, which was not good whatsoever. So yeah, here's the car. It's seen better days. It's a little bit muddy, but I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. So yeah, so starting P26 out of 35, not great. I definitely know we could have done better, but I guess we'll just have to see how it goes and see if we can make anything in the race. So let's jump straight into the race then and see how it goes though. So here we go then for my first ever C1 race at Oulton Park. As you can see, we're literally just leaving the pits now. How it works with the start procedure is we go around, do a lap, and then on the grid they line us up in 2 rows. And then we literally do another formation lap in those 2 rows, and then we start the race and, well, go for 3.5 hours basically. So yeah, as you can see then, we're literally just lining up now. We are actually on the inside, which is a good thing here. So literally just pulling away off the grid now to start the formation lap, and we're already up to 2nd gear. 2nd gear is going to be the gear we use to start the race. As now we cut on to the start finish line then, as we get ready to start the race, as the green lights go on now and we start racing, run down towards turn 1, as we're going to get a little bit of slipstream here as we flick up to 3rd now. As you can see, it's 3 wide just ahead of me here, so I could try and use this to a benefit. So I go in the middle of the track, just defend the inside a little bit, go down the inside of one of the cars there, goes a little bit wide, who was on the outside of that 3-way battle, and we've actually made up to P24 straight away. And now we're going to try and keep on the back of this pack here then, as we run down towards turn 2, now turn 3, where it's a very difficult one to judge the braking point of the guy in front. Luckily I managed to judge it very nicely, as you can see, I'm going to get a very good exit out of this corner and try and get a little bit of slipstream down this little mini straight, as we flick up to 4th now, get a massive slipstream as he drags me all the way down the straight. And I was thinking, okay, let's see how he does in this next sweeping left-hander just before the hairpin. I'm going to sweep all the way around the outside of him very nicely and make him move stick just before we get to the hairpin. So I'm back on the racing line for the hairpin now. That is 2 positions made in a couple corners. So yeah, very good start from us. Obviously this is an endurance race and it's going to last 3.5 hours, so at some point I will need to start thinking about fuel management and tyre management and not just go full send until the end of the race. And obviously at some point I need to be concentrating on changing over with the driver. So yeah, I'm not going to be going the full 3.5 hours obviously. As you can see, got a pretty decent exit out of the chicane. I did flick up to 3rd there a little bit early. As you can see, they start pulling away now because the little C1 1 litre engine just cannot take the boggin up that hill there. So I need to flick up to 3rd a little bit later than that. As we head into the next chicane then, flick down to 2nd, taking it very nicely here. I definitely could have straightened it up a little bit, but nevertheless it was still pretty decent. I'm still on the back of the pack. Coming around towards the sweeping right hander, flick back up to 3rd, obviously going all the way up the hill now, where again it just bogs all the way up this hill because it's such a steep hill. And we get back on the little straight as we're coming across to the sweeping right hander now. As you can see, they are slowly gapping me, which isn't good at all, but as long as we've made a couple positions as we have and we don't get overtaken and just hold position, that is okay with me. Like I said, at this point I was already thinking about saving the tyres and fuel management. Obviously I don't want to fall flat to the end of the race, like I already said before, and also I'm not really experienced with endurance racing. I'm used to just basically sprint racing with karting, just flat to the end, so I wasn't too sure about fuel management and basically with tyre management. So when I was already trying to save tyres and fuel and back off a little bit and not push to overtake, you know, it was a little bit early and I probably could have pushed a little bit harder, but nevertheless so I still think I was doing pretty well and still keeping pace, as you can see. My times were still a little bit off. I definitely think I could have been a little bit quicker, but as the session went on, obviously the more track time I got, the quicker I got and the more comfortable I felt with the car and pushing it a little bit more. As you can see, they are really slowly starting to pull away from me as I cut on a few more laps later. So yeah, I just need to watch out for this and basically just run my own race. Obviously everyone ahead of me here has pretty much got a lot more experience than me, so I just need to run my own race really, not worry about them and trying to keep pace with them, and just basically bring the car home in one piece really. One thing I did notice is behind me during the first hour of the race was another car, 418, who was on my tail the whole of that hour, and I was pretty much trying to defend off him as best as possible, whilst obviously also trying to think about fuel and tyre management. And yeah, it was a very good battle between us, and I was just basically trying to hold on as much as possible, as the other cars were basically pulling away from us. So I was being a bit of a boss at this point and just holding him up as much as possible. And I could definitely tell at this point of the race he was a lot more quicker than me, so all I could really do was just try and defend as best as possible, to try and keep the pace up, try and be as quick as possible whilst also not killing the tyres and wasting fuel. And also another thing I did find was that it got very hot in this car. Obviously it was quite sunny at this point, and obviously in the car with your full gear on it is very hot. As you see, we got absolutely sent down the inside there by one of the Trojan cars, and he's actually the guy that started in the pit lane after qualifying. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure why he started in the pit lane, but yeah, he started in the pits, so I knew at some point he was going to be sending it past me anyway, as their drivers and their cars are very fast. So I was just basically trying to keep my own race, and obviously try and hold position from that 418 car. So yeah, obviously that Trojan car actually got past both me and 418, which was a very aggressive and, well, risky move, but fair play, he made it work, and he's going to go fly away now and try and catch the rest of the pack. But for me, I was just trying to hold pace, my own pace, and keep that 418 car back behind me, because like I said, me and him at this point are about similar pace. He's a little bit quicker because he's all over the back of me here, but at the moment I'm still managing to hold on, and he's not finding any position to try and fly down the inside of me. And yeah, like I said, it gets very hot in this car, so I was struggling a little bit with trying to keep the pace whilst also trying to not pass out from like heat stroke or something. But yeah, it was a very intense race, and like I said, it was a massive learning curve, and I was basically just trying my best to try and keep the pace up and try and learn as much as possible and get as much track time as I could in this race. It's kind of a shame you can't see behind me either, because it was literally so long, that battle that we had with the 418, and such a good battle as well, because at some points he was trying to look down the inside, but I knew he was going to send it. I knew I had it covered, so yeah, it was very difficult to say the least. But as you can see, we're actually already catching another car who had a little bit of an issue here up ahead. I'm not sure if he spun off or just had a technical issue, so we're actually going to go past him down the inside here as he backs off on the right hand side, as we're heading into the sweeping left hander once again up towards the hairpin. So yeah, like I said, that kind of helped me out again a little bit with the car behind me, the 418, as I was just holding position from him, and obviously that car getting in the way a little bit prolonged him thinking about sending it down the inside of me, which I will not complain whatsoever. Obviously I knew eventually he's probably just going to absolutely send it, but for now I was still keeping pretty decent pace, and I just had to concentrate on my own race. And as you can see, he does eventually send it down the inside of me into the hairpin as I go a little bit wide there, and he actually got on the brakes a lot later than me, which is a massive shame. But he got around me very cleanly, and I'll take it, and all I could do now really is try and stick on his back, basically just bump draft him as best as possible and let him drag me along throughout the next couple laps, and maybe try and see where he's going wrong and see where I can try and advance on him and get the position back eventually. But for now we're just going to stick on the rear of him, as I think that's the next best move on the board. Just let him drag me along, try and catch up to the rest of the pack, and who knows, maybe we can try and make a couple more positions out of this. As you see, I'm really getting close to him here, getting a massive amount of slipstream. The insane amount of power on this car, honestly, it was actually mental at some points. As we come towards the sweeping left hand here, down towards the hairpin once again, take it very nicely down to second gear, obviously all over the rear of him here, try and get a pretty decent exit here out of the hairpin. As you can see on the slower speed corners, he did slowly pull away from me here, so it wasn't ideal to say the least. But I knew turn 1 mainly, especially turn 1, and then turn 2 as well, I did have the edge on him there, so maybe that's the point where we could try and advance on him and maybe eventually get back around him. But for now, like I said, I'll just stick on the back of him, try and let him drag me along, and maybe think about overtaking him again a bit later on. We're actually going to cut to a few laps later where actually I really get a very good exit out of turn 1 here. As you see, he doesn't quite get a good exit as he gets a bit of a tank slap on the exit, and we actually get a bit of slipstream down towards turn 2, and then obviously immediately afterwards turn 3. So I'm going to take the racing line down here, try and take it as quickly as possible here, try and tuck it in nice and tight, get a bit of an undercut here as we get a very good exit out of turn 3, get a little bit of slipstream down the next little straight as we're going to flick it up to 4th, then go down the inside of him just before the sweeping left-hander. Looks like he's just going to be on our outside for the sweeping left-hander, so we are just going to lift just a little bit here because we're not on the racing line. And look at that, we have made the move stick very nicely, and now we're back on the racing line for the hairpin. Obviously late on the brakes, managed to get around him very nicely in towards the hairpin, and that is the move made back on him then. So yeah, when I said I was just going to let him drag me along for a bit, I did, and then realised that he was a little bit slower out of turn 1 and turn 2. So I used that to my advantage and managed to get back around him, which was a very good battle between us. He was very respectful. Massive thank you to him and a massive shout out to him for having a very good battle with me and also making this race a hell of a lot more fun. Obviously at this point I did slowly start to pull away. It was a little bit of, he was sort of catching, I was sort of pulling. It never really stayed the same, it was one or the other. So yeah, it was a very good race at this point, and as you can see we're actually catching up to some more cars here who are actually lapped cars at this point, so I was just about to just get around him very quickly. I didn't want to have any problems with him. The car that I just overtook there was actually the one that had that little issue earlier from either a spin or a technical issue that I got past. So yeah, he's now a lap down from us, which is not ideal from him whatsoever. But yeah, the race is going very good at the moment, and we're managing to concentrate back on tyre management and fuel management again after we had that little battle with 418. Obviously I was still concentrating on the tyres and fuel, but just not as much. Obviously I was mainly concentrating on sticking behind him and just saving the tyres and fuel then, and then when we got back around him I pushed it a little bit. As you can see we got absolutely sent down the inside there by another car there, which was actually the 508 again, who actually made a pit stop before me. Obviously at this point people are starting to pit, I haven't yet, so I knew that at some point faster cars that were already ahead of me were going to catch up to me and get past me again. So yeah, it was very quick though, a very nice move from him, so I didn't have to complain too much about it. It didn't get too much in my way and I didn't get too much in his way. As you can see, he straight away pretty much just flew away down the road. I stuck with him a little bit, but he was a lot quicker than me and clearly knew how to save the tyres and fuel a lot more better whilst also pushing it than me. So yeah, anyway though, we carried on with our stint and just carried on pushing as much as possible, whilst also, you know, saving the tyres and fuel and also not damaging the car from obviously Megan to go in eventually. Taking it very nicely. Obviously didn't have much trouble from the car behind now, as I did slowly start to pull away and create a bit of a gap between me and 418. So yeah, I was basically in a point of where there was not much pressure. I was basically just taking it at my own pace, didn't have to worry about anyone ahead or behind me, and yeah, it was going pretty well. At this point the camera was actually on the verge of dying from the battery life, and also the SIM card was running out anyway. So yeah, I sadly didn't get the whole of my stint in the recording, but I did actually end up pitting once and then going back straight out again, and then pitting again, and then going back out again for one more lap before swapping over to Megan, who took over for the rest of the race, and there was no more pit stops for Megan to do. As you see, we're just getting past another lap car down the inside of him very nicely in towards turn 1, and it's at this point where the camera dies, sadly. So now we'll cut back to me after I've just finished my stint then in the paddock. So boys, finished my stint. As you can see, I am massively sweaty. Holy damn, that is really hard to go that long. I went for about an hour and 45 minutes there. As you saw, it was pretty much straight. I don't know how much footage I got. Sadly, the GoPro was, well, it looked like it shut off by the time I'd come in. So yeah, it was a very good stint though. Yeah, as you saw, I came in for the first time and jumped back out again, and then came for the second time and then jumped back out again. So I just had to stop recording there because someone was actually taking my photo, which is quite funny. But yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. I'm absolutely knackered now. Got my little Coke there, so yeah, trying to get some sugar back in me, get some liquid because I am freaking knackered. You alright? So yeah, very good day. I guess we'll just have to see what the GoPro recorded, so I apologise if it wasn't much. hopefully it's got as much as possible. I'll try and get as much footage together as possible. But yeah, I'll jump onto a bit later and do a race review. So boys, another race weekend done. First obviously car race, so yeah, really enjoyed it. Actually about to jump out in a different kind of C1, obviously the the road car C1, so yeah, a little bit different to the racing C1, but what can I say? So yeah, like I said, massively good weekend. Really enjoyed it. Massive shout and massive thank you to BPC Tunings for giving me this opportunity and helping me out in obviously mechanicking, supplying the car. It was such a great experience. I learned so much. Obviously, I'm only used to karting, as you guys know from the channel. So this was my first ever car race. Obviously, I'd only just got my ARDS license and passed my ARDS test back in January. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve to say the least, but I really enjoyed it. And massive shout out to Josh as well for helping me out with driver coaching and giving me some advice, because it definitely helped. But yeah, I guess I'll be signing out then for my first ever car racing weekend in the C1 series. So I'm going to leave this video here. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like and subscribe. But thanks for watching, and goodbye.